What's up, guys? In the last one, I showed you how to launch a complete AWS setup, a VPC, a subnet, and an instance, all using Terraform. But in this one, we're going to take it a step further. I'm going to be showing you how to automate that workflow using CI/CD. What that means is no more running Terraform commands in your terminal. The moment you push to GitHub, your cloud infrastructure gets built, and once you trigger the destroy workflow, it all goes away. So without wasting any more time, let's fire down. Running Terraform manually works, but it's manual, it's inconsistent, and it doesn't scale. If you forget to run it, your infrastructure doesn't get updated. And if you mess up your local state, it breaks everything. This is where automation and remote state comes in. Here's what we're going to build. A GitHub Actions pipeline that runs Terraform whenever you push your code to GitHub. The Terraform state stored in an S3 bucket. So even in your pipeline, Terraform knows exactly what resources exist. Using GitHub Secrets to pass in our AWS credentials and build a simple workflow that initializes, plans, and applies our infrastructure automatically. With all the boring stuff out of the way, let's get right into it. I'm logged into my AWS account and I'm in the IAM dashboard. A disclaimer: this setup was meant to be as beginner friendly as possible. It doesn't contain all of the best practices. It's supposed to help you get more comfortable with running Terraform and using CI/CD pipelines to automate your workflow. If you want me to create a video where I talk about the best practices, the production ready practices, then leave a comment down below. Without out of the way, let's get right into it. So I'm going to create a user. I'm going to call it Terraform CLI, and I'm going to attach policies directly. So we want to set just enough permissions so that this IAM user can actually interact with our EC2 instance, our VPC, and all the necessary things that we need. Right, so I'm going to give it EC2 full access. Again, I'm going to emphasize, right, you could actually create a custom policy if you don't want to give it full access. That would actually be the best practice, but I want to keep this video as simple as possible. Right, so I selected 3 permissions. Let's take a look at that. Amazon EC2 full access, S3 full access, and VPC full access. S3 full access because we're going to be using S3 for our remote state, right? And you're going to, if you're not familiar with that term, you're going to know what that is in a second. So our IAM user has been created successfully, and I'm going to go in there and create an access key. My use case is going to be CLI, and I'm going to click that icon, understand. I'm going to skip the description value. You can put in anything you want, and I'm going to retrieve my access keys. I'm just going to download the CSV file, and that's that about creating the IAM user. We're going to use these credentials in our GitHub secrets on our GitHub repo. Let's move to the next one. Now that we have our IAM user created, we're going to make a slight change to our Terraform file. This is the Terraform file we worked on in the previous video. So I'm just going to go into my second screen, grab that this new block, and I'm going to paste it within the Terraform block after the required providers block, right? So what we have is we have the backend block, and this is how we are going to tell Terraform to store our Terraform state file into an S3 bucket. So once we're done with this, we're going to go ahead and create an S3 bucket with this exact name, right? So my bucket name is going to be, just going to change this to the DevOps-Man TFT. So this is going to be the name of the bucket. This is going to be the key of the file, and the region is going to be US61A, and we want encrypt to be true, right? So now that we've done this, let's go ahead and create that S3 bucket. So I'm inside AWS now, within the S3 page, and I'm just going to grab this name and paste it in here, and I'm going to leave every other thing. I'm going to select bucket versioning as enabled, and I'm going to create this bucket. This is all I need to do because I can't have this bucket created with Terraform. Why is that? Because as part of the initialization process, when we're running Terraform init within the pipeline, Terraform is going to look for this bucket that we specified. It's going to look for this bucket that we've created, right? So we need that to be created beforehand. That is why I went into AWS to create it manually. So Terraform is going to look for this bucket. Is going to after initializing Terraform files and installing all the providers and everything, getting the state, it's going to store the state file inside this bucket with this key. This is what we mean by remote state. Now we're going to be working on creating the GitHub Actions workflow, right? So we are here within the VS Code editor, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a file. So watch what I'm going to do closely. .github /workflows. Make sure there's an S, right? And we're going to call the file deploy.yaml. So what this is going to do is that it's going to create a .github directory and a workflows. This should be workflows. Choose that. So you need to make sure that the spelling is correct, right? Because this needs to be exactly this way for the workflow file to be created. So make sure that this name is exactly how I've written it out, .github and workflows with an S, because we need these files to be exactly this way for the workflows file to work correctly. So we have a deploy.yaml file, and we're going to start editing this right away, right? So we're going to call the file we're going to give it a name, and we're going to call it Terraform creation, because this is going to create our workflow. So we have our name created. The next thing we want to do is we want to tell Terraform that whenever, or we want to tell GitHub Actions, right, that whenever there is a push to our repository, right, trigger this creation workflow. So whenever there is a push on the main branch, then do the following. So I'm just going to get the rest of these from here. So we're going to have one job, and the job is going to have the name called Terraform plan and apply, and it's going to run on Ubuntu latest. So we're going to start getting the steps. So the first step is to check out the code, and we're going to be using this already created workflow, right? So the next one is we want to configure our AWS credentials. So the security access key, and the access key that we created from the IAM user, this is where it's going to come to play. So what we're going to do next, when we're done with creating these workflow files, is that we're going to go into GitHub, and we're going to create GitHub Secrets. using those values. So let's get the rest of this. To have it right here. So we have the first step is going to check out the code. The next step is going to configure AWS, right, with these secrets. Then we're going to set up Terraform. This is very important. If you don't have this step, then every other step below is going to fail, right? Because the workflow runner isn't going to understand the Terraform command line all on its own. That's what this step is for. Then we're already familiar with Terraform init, Terraform plan, which is going to show you the execution plan that you're about to run, and the Terraform apply with the auto approve flag. And we're also going to pass in these environment variables, the AWS access key ID and the AWS secret access key. So the next flow we want to create is the destroy workflow, because you want to be able to create your resources using Terraform. You also want to be able to destroy them using Terraform. So the name of this one is going to be Terraform destroy. And in the first workflow, we set we're telling GitHub Actions that we want this workflow to run once there is a push. But for this one, we want to be able to trigger this workflow ourselves, right? So that's why we have on workflow dispatch. So we're going to get our jobs, the destroy job, Terraform destroy resources, which also runs on 1.2 latest. So we're going to check out the code. This is going to this is the first step that we're going to have within the Terraform file. Then we also need to configure AWS again. Alright, don't forget this. Then we're going to set up Terraform just like we did in the previous step, or in the previous workflow rather. And then we're going to run Terraform and Terraform destroy. Alright, so this is going to create a destroy workflow for us, and I'm not going to push this to my GitHub repository yet, right? By the way, to follow this tutorial effectively, you need to have your main.tf file within a GitHub repository, because we're running our CI/CD pipeline using the GitHub Actions. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go into GitHub Actions to store my GitHub secrets. So I have my GitHub repository opened. Don't worry, the link to this repository is going to be in the description of this video, and it's also in the description of the previous video. So we're going to go into settings. We want to create our GitHub secrets, and we're going to scroll down here to under security. We're going to go into secrets and variables, and under secrets and variables we're going to click on actions, right? So we want to create new repository secrets. So I'm going to click on new repository secret, and what I'm just going to do is that I'm going to get the name of the secret that I have it saved as. So the first one is going to be AWS access key ID. So, and then I'm going to go into AWS, get the access key, and I'm going to paste that in here, and I'm going to click on add, and then I'm going to do that again, get the second variable. You also need to make sure that you are using the exact name you are using within your AWS or within your workflow, right? So I'm going to show you what I mean in a second. So you can see within the configure AWS credentials, we have on line 20, we have secrets.aws access key ID. So this is where I got the first variable name from and the second one. So what you have in here is exactly what you should have within AWS, right? So now that we have our GitHub secrets created, we are now ready to push our workflow files and run our first workflow. So we're back within VS Code, and I'm going to pull up my terminal. I'm going to clear my screen, and I'm going to run git add because I want to push those changes to GitHub now, because we are no longer running any Terraform commands manually. So I've run git commit git add. I'm going to add a commit message. I'm going to say created workflows and added remote backend or remote state, not backend state. So now we're ready to push to GitHub. Cool. So let's go back into GitHub, and if I refresh this page now, you see that we're going to have this in here, and you cannot, if we come over to the actions tab, you can see that we have two workflows: Terraform creation and Terraform destroy. So let's look at what is currently running. While Terraform plan and apply job is running, so we can open that up and we can see all of the steps passing one after the other. So we're just going to wait a moment. You can see that it's actually running the Terraform commands automatically for us just because we pushed to GitHub. So this is the power of CI/CD, right? And if you're not familiar with CI/CD, you might want to get a little bit more familiar with it before jumping into this video. So we're just going to wait for this to finish creating. Cool. So we can see that the Terraform planned and applied job ran successfully. We have a green check here that lets us know that this executed successfully. So we're going to go into AWS and we are going to check that we actually have those resources created. First of all, let's check our S3 bucket. Let's see the Terraform state file that was saved. I'm going to open that up, and you can see that we now have a dev directory where we have our Terraform state file, right? So that is remote state. I'm going to check on my EC2 instance. Now I'm inside the EC2 instance page, and you can see we have our EC2 instances up and running, right? So everything actually created from Terraform. I didn't have to run any Terraform commands manually. So now that we've tested the Terraform creation workflow, let's test the Terraform destroy workflow. So we're going to click on create or run workflow. And I'm going to refresh this, so you see that we have our workflow has been triggered. So Terraform destroy is now running. And what it's going to do is that it's going to go into the S3 bucket, get that remote state, and you can see that it's actually picking up all of the resources that we created in the first workflow, and it's going to destroy everything for us. So you can see how clean and easy this is. So let's wait for it to finish destroying. So we can see that the destruction has been completed, right? And our workflow has run successfully. So I'm just going to exit out of this. I'm going to check on my instance again just to be sure, and we can see that our instance state has changed to terminated. And that's all the time we have for today. We've looked at how to use remote state within a CI/CD pipeline using GitHub Actions. So make sure that you like, you share, and you subscribe so that you can stay updated when we drop new videos. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.